around payment systems and store of value, because digital assets are assets, as it were. Currency. So you want to be able to keep your wealth in assets that would grow. And because of the scarcity of some of these assets that have been crafted, you find out that there is a lot of money, a lot of interest chasing those assets that just promotes the value, and it has been stable and vastly improving over a period of time. Yes, there are blips, but then it comes back because it's economic theory. A lot of money chasing restricted assets. Yeah. So for economies, the challenge really is what is the nature of digital assets that you are focusing on driving, and if you look at if you look across the globe, and you spoke about the Treasury Secretary of United States, yeah. You realize that much of the activity that comes from third world countries, Nigeria being one of the powerhouses, is activity that takes money out of the economy and domiciles it in places that are not in Nigeria. And I say in places that are not in Nigeria because there is no home for digital assets really. But the promoting of digital assets is more in the developed world. So what you want to see is digital assets that are a bit more domiciled in your local environment that actually begins to drive economic activity. So some Nigerians have tried to evolve coins. There's also been the e-naira, but just think about it. Digital assets are only strong when you have consistent interest driving them. And so for us at NASD, you're looking more at digital assets as stores of value and securitization. There must be something behind the digital assets, so people are still very confused as to what really lies behind crypto. Yeah. And if you are uninitiated and you go in that direction, you could have your fingers totally burnt.
Very interesting. I would yield to Mr. Teslim Shitta-Bey to broaden the conversation. But for me, when we're looking at digital assets, three things come to my mind: disruption, and then ability to create market access to new vista of opportunities for new investors. I mean, the young people. We have a young demographic, and of course, regulation. So those are three things that come to mind. Okay. But Mr. Teslim.
Yeah, also, you took it right off my lips, actually. Yeah. Nigeria has a young demography. Therefore, it's really of no surprise that Nigeria has the second largest digital wallet on the planet Earth. It shows it's driven mainly by very young people, people who have great imagination, great excitement for things digital. And therefore, given that introduction, Mr. Longe, what is the platform that you represent doing to attract this young demography to the market, especially using digital tools? Recently, the Securities and Exchange Commission gave you the right to engage in sandboxes or experimental areas around digital assets. How far have you gone? And what do you expect to be the size of that market? Because it has been claimed there's a weakness in depth and there's a weakness in terms of scope of the market currently. So what is the NASD doing in that regards? Are there any processes?
Oh yes, I mean, so we did pioneer the anchoring of digital assets in the Nigerian capital markets as far back as 2020, which is a signal point, because that's when people realized that you could work remotely and you could do a lot of things remotely without across borders. So the thinking around our digital assets endeavor initiative was commenced in the COVID years. And we've taken that on and we've actually built a securities token offer system. And what does a securities token offer mean? It just means that you can sell securities of companies on a platform that is enabled by digital power, i.e. blockchain, right? So we've set up that system, and much of what happens in NASD, which is very symptomatic of symbolic of what you've said, is that NASD does not have a trading floor. So we begin to start thinking of borderless from the fact that much of what we do is in the cloud. So naturally, we're the partner of the people who use their devices. So we've promoted a mobile app where investors can trade directly. I haven't done their KYC through their brokers. And we've been working on this system, the sandbox, of our digital securities platform for this period. SEC has actually approved it. But now, I think it's important to understand that you don't just land value just by thinking it or by espousing it. What creates value, in my own understanding, is content and liquidity. Now, content speaks to what new things, what new areas of the market are you bringing in. Yes, we like that demography, but what are they buying, right? They don't want, that demography doesn't really care for the long, slow distance. Yes, they like their devices, but they also want to get things done on the fly. I mean, they also want return very quickly. So you buy at 10 today, it grows to 100 tomorrow. And that is not exactly the nature of what we're selling on our platform. Securities token offerings are actually real world assets. You know, and with real world assets, there is a time, everything takes time to build. So what it is for us is that we're looking at the coalescence of securities that actually deliver bumper return, securities that conform to the nature of new investor tribe that you speak to about the kind of wallets that you see second globally in the world. You know, that coalescence is not easy to match, but yes, you can find it. You know, and so this uptick has been somewhat slow, but that's how a market gets built. We are actually launching our first digital first issuance on a digital securities platform, I would say in the next few weeks, and then we begin to build from there. But just to describe a little bit more about the kind of things you can see and how we think about this with NASD, we think that building a market is about providing a catalyst to the economy, and so that's how we think about creating content. So you must have a base, an infrastructure base that is seamless, you know, and that is orderly. And that infrastructure base now attracts companies in different sectors that actually speak to the kind of value that you're talking about.
Before you go further there, the infrastructural base, what really are we talking about when we are referring to infrastructure? It's a promoter term, infrastructure, but what does it mean in this context?
Okay, so yeah, you're right. You know, so in this context, I'm talking about the enabler of economies. There's also the enabler of digital securities platforms, right? That's a different thing. I'm talking about the model that actually begins to generate value in an environment. So you must have roads that work. You must have power that works. You must have telecommunications that works. If you want to move agriculture around, you must move it in a logical way, maybe via the rail. You know, so you have to have that infrastructure base that then attracts companies to begin to build value. You must also think about payments we have been very successful at.
Yes.
You know, so we see it from that perspective, and we see that we must focus on those sectors, you know, to begin to then generate the kind of blockbuster return that you're talking about. So if I am able to get a concession for the railways between Lagos and Ibadan, and I can move trains hourly, and people can live in Ibadan and work in Lagos, or vice versa, and we can take all the real estate along that channel, you can begin to create a lot of value there. And if you can break that value down into fractions, which is what digital assets do, right? That's what our platform is advocating. So think about young people who want to own their own homes. They don't have to come and struggle in the high rent or housing sale economy of Lagos. They can actually live in Shagamu, they can live in Abeokuta, they can live all the way down that corridor. You create a new economy, you know? And so you can actually sell, you can buy the rights and you can sell those rights for even 1,000 naira each. That's the kind of economy we're thinking of creating on that platform. But it takes time to create that content, and it then takes time to be able to sell it to those people, and they need to experience it and say, oh wow, we can actually create something that's of value to our country and also of value to us, because the return prospects will be phenomenal.
If I get you correctly here, and then before I allow Otto to come in, if I get you correctly, you're saying that, let's take the rail line. Perfect example. The rail is built, it goes from one end to the other, generates a stream of cash flow. Now, this stream of cash flows are built into an asset that becomes tradable on your platform.
Exactly.
And investors can buy and sell. So the young people who want to go in and feel that, okay, you know what, government might likely increase, just as an example, rail prices, the cost of movement, and that improves the revenue of that particular asset. And therefore, that will translate into me seeing higher prices. So I could buy now and sell at that higher price later. You know, so it will more or less be like any other equity.
Yes, that's it. So there's a combination of asset class. There could be debt, there could be equity. You know, but just in picking up on what you said, it's actually the company that gets the concession that then becomes what that is then listed on the market.
Okay.
So if I get a concession to take that the rail corridor, right? There's so many things I lay up on that. There's advertising, there's broadband, there's real estate, you know. So that concession, the entry point of that concession is what you pay to the government. What you then generate as revenue is what comes on our market, and you can trade it for tokens.
Okay.
1,000 naira tokens.
Okay.
You know, so you're looking at the entire diaspora, the entire globe of Nigerians, the entire people who are interested in emerging market assets, looking at an asset like this. So this is what I speak to about content creation. Content creation must speak to value. I mean, it can't just be something in the air that you just want. I mean, crypto has gained credence because somebody has created content somewhere. But but nothing underlies that content. What underlies it is the interest of billions of people around the world that continue to sustain it. What we're saying now is real world assets, so we need to create that content that is deliverable, understandable, and actually is credible. You know, so those are the things that we're trying to do. It takes time to do that.
Would you say a Lagos bus rapid transit system would fit into that concept?
Technically, yes.
But you cite, so that suggests that there's some downside.
The exchange rate doesn't make running the transportation cost effective, and constantly you're having to increase the prices. So the logic isn't deep enough. How am I going to be able to refresh those buses? What is the maintenance around those buses? I know that we have some parks and we have some maintenance yards, but I don't think that it has been addressed in a way. What we should be doing is actually assembling those buses at a minimum, or think of manufacturing those buses locally. Yes, manufacturing them locally, and in fact, even creating an economy around it where you have you develop an engineering support around it, where you can have mechanic yards that make sure that those buses do not stop on the road. You know, that creates an economy around that as well. That's the depth that you're looking for, and you can tokenize all of those things. You know, so that's what we're talking about. So there has to be thinking around what you're trying to do. But you know, I mean, I don't think the world is waiting for us. I mean, and for
Absolutely.
a company like ours, we have to be functional. We can't be dreaming forever. So we need to take bite sizes, dream about where we want to go, and when the dream becomes valid, then we'll be there. But we need to do something now.
Now, also please.
Very, very interesting insights from you, particularly around sectors and all that. And it's nice that you've let the cat out of the bag, that you're going to do your first issuance in a few weeks to come. But what have been the learning experience from this sandbox with SEC, looking at what has happened in the US SEC and even globally, the global regulatory body, the IOSCO, the International Organization of Securities Commissions, have been looking at frameworks around digital assets. But what has been the learning experience on this regulatory in the incubatory program for the DSP, the NDSP? Yes.
Okay. So let me say that the Securities and Exchange Commission has provided great support, and at a certain point they provided significant leadership. You know, but just like I said from the beginning, digital assets are somewhat of a gray area. You know, so you'd need to work with clarity as to what you're trying to do. So at the beginning, I would say that to a certain degree, NASD was the more insistent entity of trying to anchor digital assets. We had originated a partnership that would build a system to offer digital securities on the Nigerian capital market through our platform. And we then shared this with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We ran a pilot test of what we're trying to do. And I think as a result of that engagement, the rules on digital and virtual assets came out in May 2022. And then it's built up from there. I think the Securities and Exchange Commission has also gone ahead to actually see that all of these big wallets that Teslim talked about begin to be anchored here in a structured way, not under the table anymore, but over the table.
Yeah.
Now, it's not, like I said, you don't just will it. You have to, there has to be something. I guess markets are evolved because you want to, there's a need, you know. So we have tried to evolve that need. We're not selling crypto. If we were selling crypto, it was up to, I don't want to go into on an artist that is well known, you know.
Popular, global.
Yes, is well known, you know.
Popular, global.
Yes, he was celebrating his 20th year.
Okay.
Last year or this year? I think it's this year. Yes, no, last year. He was celebrating his 20th year on stage, you know, and he has very popular music, and we knew that that would be well relatable to that demographic.
Huge appeal, yeah.
You know, so we worked on that, but even the Securities and Exchange Commission said non-fungible tokens are not things that they're looking at currently, but we should explain if we want to take this forward. Now, that's also the challenge. How do you get the market operators to put structure around some of these assets?
Yeah.
We're a market, we are not originators, but we can sell the idea. But we need to bring market participants in to actually put a frame around those assets. And that was a bit of a challenge. You know that these assets are irascible. When it was taking too long to put the concept together, he moved on to go and do other things. You know, so but I still have that on the table.
Yeah.
At NASD, we have a template for supporting the entertainment and creative industry.
Yes,
And we think we're going to be able to put that on digital platforms as we go along. We haven't given it up yet. I think when you want to create value, you must be persistent.
And in doing that, are you in contact with the Ministry of Culture, Tourism? They have also tried to develop some structure for the creative industry. That would be also very nice, because what you're doing is remarkable. But again, the structure, like you said, and then creating those opportunities becomes very important.
I don't know how to answer that question. And I'll tell you why. I don't want to say the wrong things.
Yes, I
you
do.
know, so I think the private sector and the public sector think differently.
Yeah.
But then the private and public sector must work together.
Sure.
Because part of the digital assets drive is actually creating public-private partnerships. You know,
Way to
So
go. Yeah.
exactly. So if we're talking about the rail system, it will be a public-private partnership. I mean, there will be a concession. I mean, and then you can take it and develop it therefrom. So yes, the culture industry, but I also see that this industry is one where it's so fragmented. You can't touch it so easily. It's not that tangible. What you see this minute can look differently the next minute. And interestingly, there's an investor who wanted to support one of the film projects of a young filmmaker that we were trying to bring onto our market. And he said, look, that he's interested, but that he's got his fingers burnt. That the filmmakers, when they want money, they come and talk to you and they're very nice, but immediately the money leaves, you can wait forever. That they initiated a film project at COVID, and in 2024, they were just getting their money back, not profits, the capital, capital that they put in it. So he's kind of wary. So she should go and bring real estate to back her projects. I mean, this is a young filmmaker. How is she going to be able to get that kind of capital? So these are the challenges in trying to create those assets. But there are ways around that, and we'll walk through that.
I like the fact that you're considering the entertainment industry, because that's one of the big gold mines. I mean, Mr. Teslim talks about it too. If we can really bring structure and unlock opportunities in entertainment, it will be really a huge opportunity. For
we have a template to support that.
Definitely.
Why I'm actually interested in this, and you're right, I'm quite excited about the opportunities in the entertainment business in Nigeria, is this. Most of the businesses require a heavy amount of fixed asset commitments, right? So you've got to put a lot of effort in doing whatever you want to do. Now, this business is talent. And Africans, Nigerians are imbued with it. Almost every well-known artist abroad, Europe and America, are interested in doing what they call a collabo, a collaboration with a Nigerian artist to get the African feel. Craig Davis has just done that with Tiwa Savage, right? So now that shows that there are opportunities.
Tiwa Savage resurrected Craig Davis'
Craig
career.
What? Yeah, then we've seen. No, it's quite honestly true. Burna Boy did that with. Burna Boy did that with Brandy, right? Living on top of the world. So we're beginning to see the value creation that is innate within Africa, that does not really require such huge amount of dollars in terms of investment, but does requires structure, guidance around it. For instance, a lot of Nigerian artists have companies in Delaware. So that if they want to do a concert, the money goes to Delaware, not to Nigeria, right? Because basically you get a lot of tax reprieves, tax concessions from doing that. So on the flip side, what are we doing to build structures around that entertainment industry and creating those opportunities you mentioned? You talked about film. There are people building film villages. In fact, I think there are 2 under construction now in Oyo State. So that can also be securitized. And in Proshare, we're hot on securitization. That's why it's important that organizations like yours, institutions like yours, crack the code for building those structures. As it is now, I think what you need to do be hand-holding, if you ask me. You should be hand-holding some of these people. Fortunately or unfortunately, there are knowledge gaps. There's a patience gap. And so those 2 things need to be bridged. But once you can ensure success with at least one person, I think you'll see several others queuing up to say, we want to be like the lemming effect. We want to be like that person. And therefore, you begin to build traction and you begin to see value almost instantaneously created. Let me give you an example of how shocking some things are. If you ask yourself, Adire, tie and dye, is a massive Nigerian industry. I mean, it's indigenously Nigerian, right? People are using those designs globally for fantastic fashion shows. Who owns the patent and licenses?
China.
So those are the gaps I'm talking about. Those are the white spaces of opportunities that exist. We have to use people and institutions like NASD to trap that value domestically? Because you talked about the BRT, manufacturing, and we need institutions like yours to be able to create those governance structures and instruments that make those areas of business sustainable.
Yeah.
Because sustainability is one of my greatest fears.
Yes.
Whether you're an actor, you see somebody like Denzel Washington, he's been acting from a very young age. He's still acting in his old age,
Yes.
right? So he's still drawing value.
Yeah.
He's still a box office hit.
Yes.
A Nigerian actor perhaps does 10 years and he fades out and that's the end of it. And you see him on the streets after 10 years. You're wondering what the heck happened to this fellow or lady. We need to build those structures. And I think from what you're saying, the NASD can achieve that. But how it's going to achieve it, I don't know whether you would like to address that.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, so since you've mentioned names, I am at liberty to mention that we have worked with D'banj, right? And D'banj wanted to celebrate his 20th year on stage last year. And D'banj is a very unique artist. I think he's one of the most creative of many of the older artists that we see, because he has a platform, right? It's called the Cream platform. I mean, I don't think we want to have that advertised here, but yes. So this is a platform that incubates new artists, and it's digital, so you can send your work to that platform. It can be viewed, and then you can have an engagement with him, and maybe a production contract and so on and so forth. And he wanted to scale that, put his catalog in, you know, put his shows with the More Hits crowd, and then do his 20th year celebration. I mean, and I think all of that had intrinsic value, which we could actually securitize. So we tried to engage the market, but we haven't cracked it yet because people have been slow in coming. And so I moved straight away to the point of how do you put structure and sustain. This is a difficult economy, and capital market practitioners, financial market operators are dealing with what they can survive on, right? So if I speak about D'banj, I speak about Burna Boy, I speak about all of these great things that can be done. There's a film company that is anchored in the UK, but does a lot of work with Nigerian themes. They look exciting, but the guy said to me, "Show me the money," you know. So we have to find a way to actually show them the money, and that's why we are putting the template forward. So if we have one, and that's the reason why I mentioned the D'banj experience.
Yes.
If you have one successful experience, one successful issuance, then people are able to build on that. We've spoken to quite a number of people. We've spoken to the director of Directors Guild of Nigeria, the president or DG of Directors Guild of Nigeria, about our template to support the entertainment industry. We have those conversations going. But we're a business and we have to survive, you know. And you spoke about where do we get these companies from, you know. So we must look for issuances that are close to markets and actually satisfy the investor community. That's the reality check. So you can have the dream, but you must also put your feet on the ground. So that's where we are. But in speaking to all of this, there is no way you can grow an economy without a veritable capital market. There is no way you can grow the capital market without integrating the capital market with the Nigerian economy
exactly.
or with the economy, right? So where do you start? How do you get this to work? I think that most of what we're doing as practitioners is just taking easy picks, and we're not tilling. You must till. NASD has no choice but to till. And that's what we're trying to do. That patience is required by the people who are stakeholders of NASD. But I think that we're beginning to see how you can take a company that is nascent to being renowned and being growing significantly to create almost unicorn status. I mean, that is
I
possible.
want you to hold that idea, because now you've just stimulated stimulated a certain area of my mind concerning the oil and gas company.
Yes.
Yes, that was incubated, so to say, at the NASD and moved on to the NGX. What are the things that we can learn from that process?
Just to add, it's even part of the consortium that just acquired
Yes,
oil
Renaissance.
and gas company.
Yeah, exactly.
Renaissance,
The
yes.
Renaissance, yeah.
So I think it would be very nice, and I will sit here proudly and say we actually went and looked for Aradel, Niger Delta exploration and production at the time, and brought them, nurtured them, and here's where they've gone. No, it didn't happen that smoothly.
Okay.
We actually had to kind of force them to come, you know. So, I mean, I don't think I have the time to explain how companies come onto NASD, but most companies come as public companies led by their shareholders, not by the companies. That's a very, very, very fine point. And that speaks to how challenging it is to grow content on our markets. So the companies themselves are market shy or market resistant, and it is the shareholders who are looking to trade their shares that creates an admission opportunity on our markets. So that's what happened to Aradel. So a shareholder needing to sell their shares, the law says that a public company must be traded on a licensed market. Eventually, one of the shareholders sold, and so that was the track that built Niger Delta exploration and production on our markets. And for since 2013, it came onto our markets. It's gone this way and gone that way. It's been developing, creating value. We've created the structure to communicate the results. Not all companies do that on our markets. Communicate the results. People see the performance. People see the growth of the company. They didn't raise capital on our markets, but they were raising capital doing, in various ways to expand their business. And so I think in 2021, where they had this shutdown of the pipeline that was evacuating their products, and I don't think they produced oil for maybe almost a whole year. But then they got it back. They built a different pipeline. This is all the things that they were doing. And then they were able to get their products out. And then the exchange rate situation and then the oil price situation now played into their territory. And they now began to put performance on the market that was really attractive to investors. And people then began to see that this company has value. And we had engagements with them to say, look, you can't be winking in the dark. You have to tell people what you're trying to do. You know, you've complained that maybe there isn't enough liquidity on our market, but I don't think that's what it is. If people see the value of what you're projecting, I'm sure that they will come to buy your shares on any market.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what happened between 2023 and 2024. That Aradel grew from 1,089 at the beginning of 2024 to 10,000 and something, and then came down to 9, and then it restructured before it moved on to the other exchange. You know, so the lesson for that is that NASD is an entrepreneur's partner.
Okay.
And Nigeria is a country where you need to have a lot of entrepreneurs create new value. So the natural partner is NASD. And NASD is not an incubator market. NASD is a market of itself. If entities choose to move on, that's their choice. But you can actually stay there and you can create value. I think NASD has the potential to be really big with being able to work with growth companies, because the entry ought to be simpler and the attention to growth and the kind of investor community that you would see is totally different from the more established markets. The more established markets, and even maybe to a certain degree NASD, have the average age of investors at around 50 to 55. I think I even heard 58. So those are the people who are in the pension industry. They call them Fund 3, and they're on their way out. So the crypto people are not dealing with those kind of markets. I mean, the new investor tribe that I call them. So we need to marry that new investor tribe to the Dibanjis of this world, to the new movie creators of this world, that kind of endeavor. So that's what we're looking to do. And you need to do that a bit successfully, so that you actually are serving people who need you, not people who, as my neighbor says to me, the unwilling working for the ungrateful. You don't want to be able to do that. So this is this thing about public unlisted companies and compelling them to come to our market. You can compel a horse to the stream, but will it drink? So there's value that needs to be created in the capital market, in the larger economy. We're doing one thing in this direction. The economy, GDP is 17%, capital market share, and you're looking at trajectory of people of countries where their GDP is well above. I mean, their capital market GDP is well above 100%.
Yes,
that's the work that's cut out for us, and it takes time, but we're working at it.
I just want to piggyback on what you just said, and it's important. We have a Nigerian demography that has a small size of baby boomers who have a large size of the wealth.
Yes.
And a large size of Gen Zs and millennials who have a smaller size of the wealth.
Yes.
This seeming, do you see a situation?
Conundrum.
Yeah, this conundrum between these people, they are many, but they don't have much money. These people are few, but they have a huge amount of money. And like you said, they're on their way out. Do you see wealth making a transition to this younger demography that you can now market more interesting asset classes to? Or do you see that this older generation will just generally just sit on a pile of money, and these other guys will be looking for the money, and neither will the two meet?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess it's a combination of both, and that's the thing that we're trying to do with digital securities platform. That's what tokenization delivers for you. Tokenization actually does a combination of institutional capital and retail capital.
Okay.
Right? So we need to look for assets that are fairly bite-sized, that you can bring, do a good demonstration, and then grow them, and then look for other new assets. So it's actually a modular strategy.
Okay.
Right? And as you create those modular successes, you're able to expand them. And don't forget that the smaller, the new tribe investors are not going to be where they are currently, just like all of us were not at this where we are and in that time. And what it says is that you need to work with them to actually actually build a trajectory of success, and logical value. And that's the challenge with this environment for me. Capital, to be patient, also needs an orderly environment. You need to be predictable about the direction that you will go. So you don't want to come out. I mean, you said to me, Otto has already written a disclaimer that any contentious view that I bring here is my own. I accept it. Yeah. So I don't want to be going on the expressway now, and then the expressway is a dual carriage expressway, and then I see cars coming in my direction. This looks like a very small thing, but this does not engender patient capital growth. You have to have orderliness. There has to be predictability. If this is how we're going to do things, this is how it's going to be, So the reason why many people have run away and said that they cannot pitch their tent here is that they can't see that orderliness happening. So we had an engagement with the Lagos State, Lagos International, Lagos International Financial Center, and they said to us that we need to build something magic, something new. I mean, International Financial Center. I like it, you know, but I think that there also has to be some clarity as to where we're trying to go. And jokingly, I mean, and I hope this doesn't get me into trouble, I said that when I look outside my office, and my office is at UBA House at Akpongbo, I see the confusion in that market.
Yeah.
It's just so many people moving around, but those people are generating a lot of billions.
Yeah.
But think about it. What if we reorganize that market, right? And rebuilt it such that you have commerce downstairs and you have high-rise apartments upstairs for younger people who want to be around the city. And then you take a tram from Onikon all the way to Akpongbo that creates orderly transportation. It changes the game. It changes the dynamics, you know. Maybe these are some of the things that we can think about. It's a dream, but you know, but that dream cannot happen if you don't have an orderly way of doing things.
Yeah.
Because this thing requires you to invest money in design, invest money in creating partnerships for original equipment manufacturers, to build construction out of it, and then to even think about the economics of how you're going to run it and all that. So it must be serious-minded people that you're putting this money with.
Yeah.
To the extent that these people, you don't see that these people are serious-minded, you can't create that kind of value. So when you speak about Dubai being an international financial center, it's because there's predictability. There's somebody who governs the way things will happen. And people believe that that way things will happen will be stable, so they'll bring their money there. When will we get there? Even if we're not there, there are small ways we can begin to achieve that.
Yeah. So, Mr. Longe, in just a few minutes, looking at the issue of risk, because it's very interesting, digital assets, what the risk factor is there. So from a market-led approach, not just the NSD and the OTC, but across the markets, what is important to take to mitigate this risk? How can we have a market-led approach, not just the NSD, but other key exchanges coming together to say that this is the approach to mitigate any risk coming from digital assets adoption?
Well, I'm not an IT expert, you know, and the more you look, the less you see with all of these things. Where you think that you have encircled the risk, you might then find out that there's somebody in North Korea whose work is just to sit up in the night and see where your code is not complete, and they can actually hack in. So I guess really it's the normal things. I mean, think about the way banks are surviving. I don't know how they're able to do it, but you must continue to have cyber security at the top of the ladder. And I can speak for our own system at NASD. It is actually a first-rate Ethereum system, and the protocols around how digital assets are acquired onto our platform is very, very intricate. It's a bit expensive, but you want to say to yourself, you need to spend that money now so that you do not face people's monies disappearing somewhere down the line. But I think that that can be created, you know, and because of blockchain, even if you have leakages, you can track them.
Yeah.
And you can have a negotiation as to how you get the money back. You might have to have a haircut, ransomware, and things like that. But I don't think that we have that exposure, you know. But I think that if you are short on providing the risk controls around your markets, you might be easily exposed to certain things like that.
Very, very important.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in from where Otto stopped. I'm looking at the question of collaboration. So, risk for one should be risk for all.
Yes.
Is there any platform that exists that for the financial services market generally, there's this collaborative effort at providing a canopy? It won't be specific to organizations, but it does at least provide a first line defense for the whole system against remote intrusion by any country. So
what it says is that the Securities and Exchange Commission is leading on this. I mean, and there's certain your risk framework for all capital market operators, you know, but it isn't a universal initiative. It's simply provide us what your risk framework is, your risk mitigants are, how your operations are able to guard against risk. But like you say, maybe there is a need to have experts who are set up, established, and then we can then funnel in to how they are able to protect us from these external threats. It's an idea. Maybe you'd have to have the DG sit here the next time so that we can, because it's very important.
Definitely.
Yes, definitely.
Very important.
Definitely.
Excellent insights from you, Mr. Longe. We just want to take some comments or questions on social media quickly as we begin to ramp up. Very interesting. Just quickly, maybe in 30 seconds, the first question here is, can we adopt blockchain technology in Nigeria's government operations to enhance transparency, curb corruption, and boost the economy? I know you're from the market, but just...
I won't answer that question because you've said it. You've given a disclaimer. I'm not. I can't be responsible for what happens in the public sector.
Okay. Well, there's this one on the need to clarify the regulatory space and the interoperability amongst exchanges. So far, from your experience, how do you see that window for interoperability between NASD and other exchanges to deepen digital asset adoption?
Okay, so I think that that's a very, so just to say about blockchain for the government space, I think it is something that can be done. It's already been mooted.
Yes.
There's a blockchain strategy from the Ministry of Communication, even the Ministry of Finance and Central Bank. So that's been done. But for interoperability of exchanges, I think that it's something that needs to be done. But everybody wants to be a champion, and it's this thing about the way we create value in Nigeria. Everyone wants to own something small rather than everyone thinking about how we can build something really big and enduring. Yeah. I think that I can only speak for NASD really, and I think that we are open to collaboration with all the partners, and we've already started talking to a few of them. I think from the agricultural space, it's even important to be able to do that.
Exchanges.
Exactly, because we have an endeavor working with one of the commodities exchanges to bring solid minerals finance into the fore. Sometime early in April, how can the capital market fund the development of solid minerals? We have one exchange that is doing that with us. We have another exchange that is trying to work with us as to getting agricultural entrepreneurs to put governance to their companies by bringing them to the NASD, but then the commodity side of it will be domiciled on their market. So those are collaborative efforts, and I think that we'll make progress with that going forward. But I think most importantly, it is that we need to build a market, or we need to build markets that are relevant to the economy. Yeah. I don't think that we're very relevant to the economy as it stands today, because we're not driving the economy. We need to drive the economy by getting involved with what people do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, of course, we've talked about the e-Naira, but the question is, would you advise the government to revisit the e-Naira token? Do you think it has been very effective?
No, it hasn't been. And of course, you know that all these digital currencies, it's all about adoption. You can't just will it. It's useful, but it has to solve a problem. And I give you how it works. So if you want to change money and transfer abroad, it's peer-to-peer mostly, but then there has to be a gateway that gets it done for you. If the e-Naira system is able to do that, which is one of the things we're working on, because our digital securities platform will become a lot more functional if you can You can, as Nigerians are everywhere, in Nepal, you can decide that you want to invest in something that's happening in Nigeria on a digital securities platform, and you simply go on your device. You can put it in the exchange rate can be worked out, and you simply have your assets, and you can see it on your screen. You know, so that is the kind of thing that we can work with on the e-Naira side. That's the functionality that makes sense for people. I need to buy a currency, I need to make an investment, and with your system, it simply works. That's what I think would happen if the e-Naira is able to achieve that. I think that they have put the concept out, but just like with the BRT, we haven't deepened the roots. You have to deepen the roots to see how everything connects, and then how it goes up and it does create value. And people vote with their feet. You don't have to force them. You don't have to cajole them. They just come.
Yeah. You talked about the STOs. Is that what that's where the NASD is working on? Because
yes.
someone's asking,
security
what token is NASD?
Security token offerings. So there has to be securitization. So real estate, maybe an artist's value.
Yeah.
I would say maybe infrastructure assets, real world infrastructure assets, and other things like that, companies. But there has to be something underlying it.
Okay. So just in 30 seconds, I want to give you a shot at him. 30 seconds.
Yes. Going forward, what should we be noting about the NASD, the direction going forward? In 2025, what are those series of things we should note currently?
Okay, so I think that we're going to see. Okay, so NASD has defined itself as the foremost alternative asset exchange. So we're going to see a lot of companies that come to this market looking to do different types of assets, and we're working on that. So we have a company that has been listed, has recently been listed on our market. That's a pointer to where we're going. We're having our digital assets coming on board, you know, and then we're going to have a foray into the growth companies, and we also spoke about solid minerals.
Solid minerals, yeah.
And there's a very interesting other side. I mean, there's a product that is coming out that is one of the informal financial sector players. Just look out for that. I can't give too much away
Do we
now.
understand that? We understand that.
I like the word informal, because that's where we need to formalize more. But very, very interesting conversations with you, Mr. Eguarekhide Longe, Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of NASD Plc.
Thank you.
When we talk about digital assets, we ask questions. Will this be engaging? And already we are getting feelers that it's been quite an interesting conversation. So thanks for the insights.
Thank you very much.
We discussed digital assets, working towards a new market order. And also, Mr. Teslim Shitta-Bey, Director of Research, Proshare, thanks for making this conversation very thick and reeling out more info from Mr. Longe.
Squeezing out.
Getting more insights on what to expect from digital assets and the market. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
For the time, Mr. Longe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, to notify our viewers that Proshare is the best place to get real-time, credible, and incisive financial market analysis, market intelligence, and impactful economic reports. So visit our website, www.proshare.co, to get the latest updates, market, and that will equip you to make the right investment decisions. It's been a very interesting conversation. Thank you very much for being part of this conversation. My name is Utoba Sepasekong, until we come your way again for the next edition of the Hard Facts. Keep in touch, keep engaging, and have a nice day.